Hello, fellow humans. Here's a simple proposal for a loosely coordinated revolution. Simple because it fits on a napkin, and loosely coordinated because it does not need a central authority to organize. Maximum wealth of $5 million and maximum wage gap of 1 to 5 everywhere. Debt cancellation for the majority world, nationalization or socialization of resources and energy, reforestation, and rewilding. This is the second napkin I made in 2 weeks. In fact, I would highly encourage you to write your own and see if we can converge towards something. This is what I had in mind when I made the videos about the world revolution and the global policy cloud. Back to our today's napkin. Demand maximum limit on wealth of $5 million and maximum wage gap of 1 to 5, regardless of the country where you reside. The case against unlimited wealth can be made on moral grounds. There are many reasons why wealth should have a limit. Basically, it all begins with the fact that the current situation is not making the world a better place. Poverty has not been eradicated. The climate crisis has not been averted, in spite of all technological progress and all economic growth. A difference of 5 times between the lowest income and the highest income should be enough to recognize difference in skill, effort, competence, desirability of jobs. It should also be enough to motivate those who seek financial compensation for a more difficult job or one that requires a lot of skill. For your national economy, regardless of where you are, a massive redistribution of wealth is the single most effective policy you can demand. This can pay for universal basic income, universal care income, universal basic services, or universal autonomy allowance. This means quality affordable social housing, free quality public transportation, free quality education at all levels, free quality healthcare at all points of access, and so much more. Tax wealth, not work, is a great catchphrase, but it only works with boundaries, both for a minimum standard for income and a maximum standard for income. If taxation does not address both limits, it will not serve an ecological purpose. If the wealth of billionaires and multimillionaires is not redistributed properly, we would still accelerate on the path of climate collapse. And wealth is not just about wealth, it is always also about power. Wealth gives you access to influence, gives you access to more resources than one person would ever need in their lifetime. Putting limits on wealth basically eliminates oligarchs and allows democracy to prosper, including in Africa that has its own billionaires. If you are in a rich country in the minority world, also known as the global north, demand the debt cancellation for the majority world, also known as the global south, now, and also demand the end of unequal exchange. Decent, hardworking humans in the global north should show solidarity with the global south, because it is the south that keeps governments in the north in business. It is the south that maintains a high standard of living in the north by supplying the north with cheap labor, cheap resources, and cheap energy. In 2015, for every unit of material that the global south imported from the global north, they had to export 5 units to pay for it. The ratio is 5 to 1 for land, 3 to 1 for energy, and 13 to 1 for labor. Not just that, but the stock of external public debt in low and middle income countries stands at over $3 trillion, double since 2010. Private creditors hold nearly 60% of it. 3/4 of the countries facing debt difficulties are also designated by environmental experts as highly climate vulnerable. The global South debt crisis is a severe moral crisis. Not only the global South is forced to take debt to develop itself, but it also exports more wealth than it takes in by orders of magnitude, ranging in the thousands of billions of dollars every year. All of that for what? so corporations can continue to accumulate capital, so mindless consumerism can continue for a minority of humans. What if every piece of clothing, every gadget, every device, every nifty thing you buy online for cheap, made somewhere on another continent, had a QR code that would take you to a website where you could see the working conditions of those humans who made that thing, their names, their salaries, their living conditions, their health status, how much free time they have with their families? What if the same QR code showed you the wealth of the owners of those companies, their names, their living conditions? Would you still buy that thing? Would you still want to keep this economic system? If you are in the majority world, demand the full nationalization or socialization of your natural resources and energy production. All labor that you do for the exports to the global north should be paid at global north prices, or the company that is employing that labor would be nationalized or socialized. Nationalization is when the state takes over the ownership of land, resources, and companies. Socialization is when democratic organizations independent from the state take over the ownership. Since there is significant deficit of democracy in the global south, most of it to no fault of their own, there's a risk of massive corruption. The complete break from the global north has been called for in the past by African leaders such as Patrice Lumumba in Congo, Ruben Umniobi in Cameroon, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, Amilcar Cabral in Guinea-Bissau, Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traoré, also in Burkina Faso, has recently nationalized gold mines and other companies and expelled French troops. At the same time, the quality of democracy is not increasing, especially in the global south. New leaders such as Ibrahim Traoré are not guaranteed to be able to eliminate corruption if the country's resources are nationalized. But ending the plunder of resources is a first step. Ideally, rich countries should allow the South to develop without debt or conditions. Socialization is adding democracy to the nationalization of resources. It would allow citizens and local communities to manage resources themselves by democratic means. This can be done with citizen assemblies, public trusts, all sorts of decentralized forums that are independent from the central government. The global north should pay for the creation of such organizations as part of a massive reparations program. Demand massive reforestation and rewilding of the lands that were taken by agro-industrial lobby, regardless of the country where you reside. A recent paper found that animal farming is the #1 cause for global warming. We are not forgetting the other causes, but it seems that eating meat more than what we actually need is a massive problem for sustainability. It is intuitive that when we cut down forests, change the wild landscape and replace it with monocultures and industrial agriculture, we are going to mess with the balance of the environment that has evolved over thousands and millions of years. It is also easy to say, stop buying what they are selling. It does not work when you go to the supermarket and you cannot choose cheap and healthy food. Too often we are forced to choose between cheap and healthy. This is only because healthy does not make enough profit. So, in order to eat healthy and save the planet, food should be deindustrialized by putting forests back where they were and by producing food locally with technologies from agroecology. Sure, this may not be as profitable in money, but it is much more beneficial for health and well-being. Let us be frank. Industrial agriculture does not exist to feed the world. It exists to make a profit. They will never stop using less industrial fertilizers if that affects their bottom line.